Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Laracast Snippet. My name is Jeffrey Way. It has been a moment, right? That's okay. I've been trying to figure out where the podcast should exist for the Laracast platform. You know what I mean? One trap I often fall into is like trying to do too many different categories. Like we're going to have videos and courses and series and nanos and bits and the podcast and the blog. And what invariably ends up happening, of course, is you don't do any of those as well as you should or as efficiently. And sometimes it's better to pull back a little bit and focus on a couple things that you end up doing reasonably well. But still, I don't want to end the podcast clearly, as you can see. And actually on that note, that's an important component here. There's now, for some of you, a video version of the podcast, and you get to look at this unfortunate face. I can control that, but you got to see it now if you want. Of course, the audio version will still exist on your podcast app of choice. But yeah, if you want, if you're on Twitter or Instagram or, unfortunately, LinkedIn. I don't want to be on LinkedIn. And you know what? I have this theory. Nobody actually wants to be in LinkedIn or on LinkedIn. They just feel like they have to. And that applies to me and my business now. I think I have 30 followers on that site. So things are looking pretty good. But yeah, now there's a video version. And actually on that note, it just occurred to me, if we have a video version, I should probably get Adrian to make some kind of fun animation, right? Like an intro Laracast snippets logo sliding in. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Laracast snippet. You know what I mean? We should probably do that. Okay, but anyways, cut to the episode. Here's what I want to talk about today. I've been thinking about this for the last couple of weeks. At your company, anytime a person, could be the boss or it could be a random member of the team, anytime a person presents an idea, I think it's a really bad practice to instantly shut it down, even if it is a bad idea. And let's be honest, lots of ideas are horrendous. But I still think in terms of like morale and utility, it's a horrible idea. Because here's what happens. Imagine you work at wherever you work, right? And what happens with some of these ideas, where we should take the product or a new feature or anything, is what probably happens is you're thinking about this the night before in bed, right? You can't sleep and it's just kind of simmering in your head. And you come to work the next day and you meet with your team or your boss or your shift leader or whatever, and you bring the idea, and if they instantly just knock it down, it's demoralizing, right? And you know what ends up happening is you're thinking, I spent a lot of time on this idea and you didn't give it 30 seconds before you shut it down. And what happens is, in their mind, even if they're not actively thinking this to themselves, like subconsciously, this is what's going to end up happening, is they will come to the conclusion, I'm not going to bother, right? Clearly, my role at this company is to be a robot who executes the task you give me. Because whenever I actually think of an idea and I bring it to you, you literally don't give it 5 minutes before you shut it down and send me away, right? Now, of course, this also works in reverse, I think, as the boss. If you bring something to your team and you say, hey, why don't we brainstorm this for a little bit? If there's a couple members who just knock it off the table, right? They brush it off. It's not useful, right? It ends up being really bad for morale because, once again, from the boss's perspective, they've been working on this for a good bit. At the point you're being included, it's been simmering in their head for a little bit. They've been brainstorming. They've probably been talking with other people for a while about the idea. And if you shut it down, again, it's just a way to end the conversation. And that's almost never useful, because here's what could happen. Even if the idea isn't quite right, maybe there's a tangent. Maybe there's like an exit ramp for that idea that takes you to something a little better. So what you should do instead is give the idea its due. We have a phrase for this: give the devil his due. Give the idea its due, right? And it doesn't mean you have to keep it. Just gracefully toy around with the idea. It's a really good quality that most of us, including me, don't have. And this is a problem with the podcast, by the way. Often I will offer tips knowing full well that I violate these tips all the time. But still, that the fact that if I have a suggestion and it's important enough to make a podcast, it's something I'm trying to fix in myself. And that's something to keep in mind. Just in case anyone I work with is like, well, Jeff, you do that all the time. So what are you talking about, you hypocrite? I get it. And often this advice is kind of me working it out in my head. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's just, it's demoralizing, right? And you see it on social media as well. I'll give you an example. We're toying around with this idea at Laracasts of offering kind of an equivalent to like shorts, not clothing shorts, but like what you see on Instagram or YouTube or does TikTok do that? I don't use TikTok. Do they have some kind of equivalent of 30-second clips? And it's not like we're a competitor, so it's not really a Me Too type of feature because we're not a social network. But I do think it would be useful to have more of like a community-driven thing. Maybe we even integrate it into the forum where you see just these little 30-second shots. And these wouldn't be tips in my mind. I originally thought that, but then Luke had a great idea of like, it could just be people, developers on a walk and they have an idea or they've, there's a new update to Pest or Laravel and Taylor and Nuno wants to give you a quick note about it, right? It's just kind of a burst of information to connect us a little more. Anyways, it doesn't matter whether that's a good idea or not. We're still giving it its due, right? We're thinking about it. Excuse me, I just hit my desk. I hope that didn't show up. But anyways, what I find, even on Twitter, and of course, Twitter is just people, and those very people work at their own companies. What I find is there's specific personality traits that you have to take into account, right? So, for example, there's one personality trait that is just uber positive no matter what you say, right? Hey, what do you think about this? Oh, it's great. I would love to see it. You got this, right? The problem is that's very positive, and I like that, but also it's not necessarily useful because I don't necessarily know what they think. It's their default, right? Then maybe they haven't given it the 5 minutes. They're just trying to make me feel good because that's their personality trait. But again, it doesn't give me any data or information as to what they genuinely think about it. And on that note, by the way, this is why you have to be a little careful, I think, when people are like, you've seen these before, right? On Twitter or X. It's so hard to say X. They say on X, if I made this product and I charge $20 a month for it, would you sign up? And what happens? Everyone wants to make them feel good, right? They're fans or pals or whatever. They're going to respond and say, absolutely, man or gal, do it. I will be your first subscriber. I think it's a great idea. And what happens? They build the product and they don't sign up. That happens all the time. So it turns out getting feedback for products you want to build in that way or in that form is not useful because the default is most people want to make you feel good. And it doesn't give you, once again, any data or information as to whether it's actually a good idea or not. Now, on the flip side, though, you also have a personality trait that almost defaults towards negativity. And I bet you've seen this as well, maybe this issue, where anytime somebody presents something new, your instinct isn't, again, necessarily to give it 5 minutes. It's to default to no. And I'll give you an example, a second example. I've been running Laracasts for a long time, and we've done redesigns over the last 12 years, something like that. And I get it. Not every time you hit it out of the park, but there is a certain personality trait that just defaults to bring back the old version. And again, if you run a product for a long time and you've done redesigns, you know precisely the person I'm talking about. The bring back the old version guy or gal. What is the equivalent of guy? We got to figure this out because it's uncomfortable for me to say gal, but how do I? Anyways, whatever. We all know that person. And it always makes me laugh. Like, do you really think we spent 6 months working on this? And your one comment of bring back the old version means we're just going to revert 6 months worth of work? Like, sorry, that's not going to happen. But still, that is I've learned over the years not to even be offended by that because it's almost like it's the default personality. And again, maybe they're right. Maybe often they're right. But the problem is by default, they're saying that. And you know this on social media because nobody's necessarily thinking about any of this stuff very much. Sometimes I heard this a long time ago, we treat text as if it is more important, maybe because we grew up reading books and these books take sometimes over a year to write. So we apply a higher value to text than the spoken word. But the problem is on Twitter, like text and spoken word are almost the exact same thing. There's no more value to it being text because it's just the first thing that came to you. So yeah, from that same point of view, if you put an idea out and somebody's negative about it instantly, well, you're getting their 30-second gut response. And a gut response is actually very valuable, but still, it's not useful. And this is why we want to be able to toy around with ideas. And I would much prefer being with 5 people who I really respect and me being able to tell them, like, what do you guys think about this? And actually getting them, once again, to juggle with it. Like, all right, well, what would happen if you did that? What would be the benefits? Are there any dangers? What would be the cost of doing that? Would it open up any new opportunities? Would it increase traffic? Would we be able to advertise on top? Whatever. You want to toy with it, right? And if you brush it off, you don't even allow the conversation to take place. And that's my big problem. I want to have a conversation. That's why I brought the idea to you. And when you shut it down, you destroy the conversation.
Terminated.
And that's not good for anyone. All right, that's it. I'm rambling. As always, I'm going to be done. This is the Laracast Snippet. My name is Jeffrey Way. I'll see you